I can't remember what it is exactly, but it, you know, I've always thought of it this way, that if a person, it brings me back to what it reminds me of is doing, like, when you think of customer reviews and how important feedback is that, like, if one person says it, then 100 are thinking it, you know?
Right.
So, you know, if the soup's cold,
I was just gonna say that.
you know, and this is where, like, in training staff and development, you know, it can be very easy for a server to go, you know, they were just in a bitchy mood. So what? It was a cold bowl of soup. But, you know, you need to think about it, that 100 other customers were feeling the same way that didn't say anything. So I love it and really embrace it whenever anyone, you know, can say even the smallest thing, even if it seems nitpicky, you know, to try and, you know, somebody says, oh, you know, you're always spelling your wrong. I remember this once. This is how significant it was for me. This was doing print media in the fitness business. And we had a customer member that was an English teacher.
Oh.
And she'd always pick up on something. And it was the your. And our graphic designer and the person we hired to do all the copywriting and everything was spelling it wrong. And I can remember my first impression was, well, I didn't even notice. What's the big deal? And then I stopped myself and went, wait a minute. That obviously, you know, a lot of other people would be noticing that too. So from now on, I'm always picking up on that your, and I notice how many times we make those mistakes. But the little things, it's the little things, right, that can drive you crazy or cause you to, you know, we've got that nanosecond to make an impression. And it can be in that 1 nanosecond when you're spelling that your name's spelt wrong. That's a really bad one, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's personal, right? It goes
I know.
But, you know, that one little thing that can just cause somebody to turn off. And, you know, we need to be, that's the idea of, I think the more, I was on a call this morning and we were talking about this, is that this idea of discovering your voice is so important. It really fits into this topic so well, because the more we try and sound like a professional or be a professional, the more critical people will be. If you're authentic and you swear and you spell things wrong and your grammar's not great, people just accept you, right? Because it's accept me warts and all, right? That's who I am. But if you're not authentic and they don't know you, like they don't get that authenticity, they're going to pick apart every little word, right? Every little letter that you put out there.
Can I interject a thing there?
Please. Yeah.
So I guess you said people will accept you, warts and all. And I guess I do agree with that, because you can't not accept someone. You can decide not to work with them. You could decide to unfollow them. You can decide to not pay attention to what they're saying. But yeah, like you don't really have a choice whether or not you're going to accept or not, because they exist here among us as another human being. So of course they're here with us. But for me, like you said, you have one chance to make a first impression. If I see, like if my gym puts out posts that are grammatically incorrect, like I don't care if you've outsourced your graphics to India, or well, actually where they speak beautiful English, as a matter of fact, but some country where like it's not someone whose English is their first language. That's their problem to sort out. And for me, that just speaks to a level of professionalism that's ridiculous to me. Like you want to spell incorrect, like what? It makes me think that it's just, I don't know. That's a really important thing for me personally, because I have done a lot of editing. Part of what I do with my teaching is marking papers. And so grammar, spelling, I mean, I love words. I love words so much, and they're beautiful, and they can, you know, they're like food almost. As much as I love food, I love words. And so it's for me to say, oh, whatever, you're, who cares? They're, whatever. No, for me, it's horrific. But that's just the difference between people and our priorities.
Yeah.
But I also think you're really hitting on something. Is there's two things that come up for me there. One is timing. So if you don't, so you know me, we have trust, right? So I can make mistakes, I can swear, I can do whatever, and you'll call me on it because we had trust and rapport.
Yeah.
But if I had done that in the beginning before we had trust and rapport, or in my advertising or my marketing or my attraction stuff, then I never would have had the opportunity to even get to trust and rapport with you.
Yeah.
So I think timing is really important. I think the other thing that comes up for me, which is so important, is understanding your audience. And I remember years ago, this goes like right after university, and there was a friend of mine, he was managing a restaurant, small restaurant chain that was really well done, and I was in the marine business at the time. We were talking about staff, and one of the things that came up for him is I'm trying to think of how the conversation went, but the bottom line was that when you're too formal, then there's this distancing. You're the boss, I'm the employee. I'll talk behind your back, but I won't be upfront with you. And it was around the idea of swearing. I was dealing with mechanics, he was dealing with cooks and stuff. And the idea of being able to communicate with them at their level, so that when you're in the banker's room and you're trying to get a loan, or you're talking with the board of directors or whatever, you take on you wear different clothes, you take on a different language, because you have to have rapport at that level. And yet if your audience is the mechanic or the frontline cook, then you have to change if you want to have rapport. So it comes back to understanding your audience. So and I've had this come up too before, where people will say why they didn't buy. Well, the language was being like university PhD level, but they were marketing to somebody who actually was turned off by that, who took that as arrogance. Because that audience was not PhD. They were not even university grads, right? They were people who were technical, and it turned them off. They felt that, you're that superiority. So yeah, it's a fascinating topic. You have to be really, I think somebody once said it, and I don't know, I think it was a famous copywriter who always said, write to grade 7 level.
Yeah, I've heard that
advertising.
Too. Yeah.
Might have even been David Ogilvy or somebody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of emotional intelligence there. Like when you're talking about when you go to the bank versus when you're in the shop with your mechanics, that's emotional intelligence. That's being able to be a bit of a chameleon, though not betraying your authenticity.
Yes.
That's you can do that.
Yes.
Tap into your ability to connect at different levels in different ways. And I don't mean levels by superior, inferior, just more like maybe on a breadth scale rather than lower and higher. But yeah, it's emotional intelligence and also awareness of your surroundings. So awareness of your audience.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you're marketing.
Michael O'Connor, Dr. Michael O'Connor, who was one of the people who was really foundational in developing the DISC model for business use. And he wrote a book called People Smart. And he's written a number of books, but he used to talk about the platinum rule, he called it. So he said, if there's the golden rule, then there's the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is it's not do unto others as you would be done unto, but do unto others as they would wish to be done unto.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about communication. So talk to people, give them what they need, not what you need, in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually open a lot of my workshops with that. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, but that's assuming that everyone is exactly like you.
Yeah.
But are they? Of course not.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I spell my name different, just like you. I mean, maybe everybody else spells their name wrong, but my name is spelled Jaimie. Never did anybody get it right. But I will say this. I will say this. As Mark was saying, I look at it like I'm never offended if somebody spells my name wrong in any sense, but in business, and I will share with you that I coach other virtual assistants because I come from that background of being a perfectionist, of getting people's names right, of getting everything right. I even have like 2 proofreaders for lots of things that I do. So it's embarrassing to me that I spelled your name wrong. And when I noticed it, I spent like 10 minutes wallowing and should I write to her and say I noticed that? Because I did. I noticed it after I sent it. But I just was like, hopefully it's not a big deal for her, but I get it. And so, and it's funny because when I hire virtual assistants, that's one of my tests to them. If they spell my name wrong, I don't even read the email. Like, I'm like, if you didn't catch that detail, it shouldn't be working for me. So to come from that background and to be having that like confronting me right now, I'm like, and I'm not upset about it. I'm just like, yeah, it's just very, it's like something that I deeply adhere to typically. And maybe I gave myself like a little pass because, we know each other a bit. We have a rapport, like you were saying. So, and I will admit, I did kind of rush through it because I had, given a previous one. And so anyway.
You know what, though? Just to address that, sorry to interrupt you, Jaimie.
No,
it's not like, I'm sorry that you spent 10 minutes feeling badly about that, wallowing in that as you, okay, but like mistakes, with my students, we talk about failure and how you react to it. And so like, and not that this is a major failure, but like you said, this is an important, it's a metric that you use. It's a thing that, precision is important to you.
Yep.
So I think that like, it's a great idea to, like I say, mess up, fess up. Say, hey, oh my God, just realize I sent that off to you. That would have probably been the best thing you could have done because I got it and I thought, and then you run all these narratives like, oh, she didn't care enough to spell my name right. And I get it. Like you have a name that's spelled in a different way than lots of ways we see Jaimie written. So I think like jumping on it right away and saying, oops, my bad, sorry about that.
I actually didn't notice it until maybe 2 days ago. So it was like beyond the time I felt. So it was all this crap that goes on in my head.
But you're right. I agree, Ashley. I agree with your point is that when I think there's somebody, I remember reading this too about somebody was saying there's one of those things, people who move quickly, like who really are who we might describe as successful or whatever, have that ability to catch something and make a decision really quickly. They don't wallow, like they don't debate with themselves. And whether it's, oh, I need to do this, I need to do it now. They're very yes, no.
Yeah. Exactly.
So they don't get caught up in, well, I'll think about it. They're delete or they're click and buy kind of thing. Like they're very quick, and decisiveness is the quality, right? So pops into their mind, they take action on it or they dismiss it. It's gone.
And it's not a reflection on your value, your worth as a professional. It's, it's a mess up to not use another more
If anything, I think
term.
in today's world, it's like what we're talking about, it's people are looking for authenticity. So I remember there's a story that Rich Schefren told about how he was building his business and he had, at the time, there weren't those things where you could put your iPhone or whatever on a bracket in your car. So he said, I had this gadget, I took, I don't know what it was, a piece of styrofoam and some tape or whatever, and I'd stick my phone to it and it'd be crooked because I'd have these insights. So I started recording these insights and there wasn't even Facebook Live or anything at the time, but he'd do the recording and then he'd publish it right away. So that, the camera would sometimes be crooked and he'd be swearing at a driver or whatever. And he did these, these calls. I don't know if he did them every week or every day or whatever. And there'd always be gems in there, like just brilliant little insights from him. And then as he kind of became successful, he's a little, he's a self-described person that's a little anal in terms of he likes quality, he likes things. So the first thing, he bought was a nice camera and a nice mounting bracket. That would do all sorts of things. And he put that in his car and he was doing the same thing, great content and everything. and he started getting all this feedback. Oh, you know, you're stuck up. You know, it's too bad you lost that ability to communicate at a level with us, and you know, your information has now become really salesy, and you know, all kinds of negative feedback. And he went, well, the content hasn't changed at all, but it was the delivery. And he went back to holding his phone or whatever, because he realized that it was turning people, it was too polished. People, you know, those who knew him well said it's too polished. It looks too good now.
Yeah.
And people are reading into that. So it's, perceptions are very, very interesting.
I had a coach, Mandy, and I worked with her for many years. And she always was somebody to swear in the group. We'd be in a mastermind live in an office. We had a conference room. And she would just go off with the F-bombs and this and that. And some people were uncomfortable. I could care less because I had a rapport with her and all that. But she used to always say to me, because she'd help me sometimes with my messaging, you know, on LinkedIn or whatever. And I would sit there and kind of pick it apart and kind of, you know, this doesn't sound right. And she's like, you got to get over that. Like, she was trying to get me to stop being a perfectionist. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. At the time, I was strictly a virtual assistant. I said, I have to be perfect or they're not going to hire me. Like, yeah. So this is important to me. So I had to kind of, you know, come at it from that point of view. And then the other thing, and I just wrote this down this morning, I had somebody write to me on LinkedIn, or no, I was reviewing her profile and I wanted to comment on something about what she does. And she's in Canada, so you Canadians will understand this. She wrote out the word organizations with an S instead of a Z, like we do here in the States. And I was trying to mirror that back to her. What's that? I didn't hear.
Or a Z, as we say.
Or Z, right. Which I don't understand, but maybe you can explain that to me. But I wanted to mirror back what it is that she does. So that's part of my marketing technique. And I thought, should I make it a Z? Or should I leave it an S? And I left it an S because I figured that's her language. But I had a moment of like, what shall I do? So interesting conversation, all of this.
I'll tell you, and I've done this, talked with other people in the past about this too, is Canadians are very sensitive. And I've talked to American marketers about this before, and they go, oh, that's just stupid. Why would anybody care about that? I said, you don't realize how little things like that. So if you're marketing to Canadians, it can mean a lot. Like those little things that, you know, sometimes spelling can do that, but yeah, Canadians can be very sensitive to that. It's quite funny, actually.
Yeah, we go back to the War of 1815. That's really what this is about.
Well, even as simple as I work with somebody on this idea of saying, when you have your form, if you're marketing to Canadians and Americans, maybe you're marketing to North America, put state and province. State and then PRO or even PROV. And for postal code, put zip or P code. If you do that, you'll get a higher conversion rate from Canadians, and you will.
Wow. Because
when Canadians see state and zip, they kind of go, oh, well, we're just kind of the afterthought. We're probably the gravy, right? So they're going to make all kinds of money off of us because they really aren't marketing to us. They don't care about us, but they'll pick us up, right? And it's that subtle, but you watch it. If you do that, if you change your forms and you put state and PROV when you're marketing to Canadians, you'll get a higher conversion rate.
Oh, it's so obvious.
But you know what's interesting is the opposite of that. Americans don't care. If you put in province, but you didn't put in state, Americans wouldn't care.
Well, why would they care? Like, yeah.
It's one of those little Canadian idiosyncrasies.
It's true. It's true. I mean, and it goes deep because in terms of, I mean, if you think of our cultures being the same, they're not actually. And yet we feel we're overshadowed by this behemoth of a superpower, an economic superpower, cultural, so to speak, superpower. And we are a distinct country, but because a lot of Americans don't, understand what that looks like, what that means, it's almost like it's almost dismissive. It's almost like, you know, do they know that we're a sovereign nation? Do they know that we're a separate country all on our own with an actual prime minister by like our own? And yeah, so it touches those kinds of thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, because
Well, like I always wonder why, I mean, you can maybe speak to this, but since we are so similar, even in our language, we speak English, both, you know, Canadians and Americans, and yet there's a lot of distinct differences. And I'll further say, my stepdad is my editor in a lot of things that I do. I said I always have a pair of eyeballs on stuff, and he's always picking apart what I do, but he's British. And we've had issues around, you know, the British language. So a lot of times, you know, he does the thing with the Z and the S and all of that. But he studies up on language. He actually owned a language school for many years in England. So he's very, very bright, brilliant, I'll say, not even just bright, brilliant. And he's always studying up. Like we had a whole issue, Mark knows about this. We had an issue with commas, you know, if you have like, you know, 3 items and it's comma, 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 or is it comma, comma, and, right? Or is it comma, comma, and, you know, so those have come up.
I love that stuff.
He edited for me that was wrong, and he was mortified. so we have these little arguments and stuff like that. But yeah, it's interesting that we all have the same language, and yet we use different. Like, what is the deal with Z? Why? Is it the only letter that has that?
Well, we have British. We're British English.
Okay.
So we identify with your father-in-law, like father-in-law,
stepfather, yep.
Is because we're British trained. So even our, you know, our U, so, you know, thorough, brought, all those things, OU, GHT.
Yeah.
Don't you spell brought like that? How do you spell brought?
Me?
Like I brought you this from the store. No, I bought. No,
with the GHT.
Yeah. It's like
what are the
harbor,
ones?
Honor.
Honor.
OU,
honor.
Right.
Harbor, labor.
Yes.
Yeah, all of those. Yeah.
So this is a neat conversation, like bringing this back to, even though this has become kind of a chit chat, I want to do a couple, I want to transition it a little bit here, is that first of all, if you're listening and you're watching this, or you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, this is just some people rapping about silly little things, think deeper, because this is a brilliant conversation about understanding who you're trying to communicate with. And this is just a brilliant example of that. Know your audience. And, you know, although we're talking about the difference between the US and Canada, which can be a very broad audience differentiator, it just shows you, if you can take that down, you know, to the nth degree, you need to have that language right. Like I know Ashley, for example, you know, works in the wine industry with winemakers, and boy, if she didn't understand the difference between a Chardonnay and a Merlot, and, you know, communicated in such a way where she knew nothing about wine, then she would totally break rapport with her audience. So not only does she have to understand and know that one's a red wine and one's a white wine, she needs to go even deeper, you know, in terms of understanding. Is one dry? Is one sweet? What are the sugar codes there? Where do they come from? What are the regions? Why is a Chardonnay called a Chardonnay? Why is a Merlot? Who are the best countries in the world that are known to produce those particular varietals? Why is a Chardonnay taste very different from Canada versus the United States versus its origins in France? Why do they taste like completely different wines? Those would be examples of Ashley really intimately knowing her audience. And she needs to know that in order to communicate with them. So I wanted to put a little teaching in here. You know, we were talking about Canada. If you're going to market to Canadians, understand those little subtle, you know, idiosyncrasies. Even if you think they're silly, it doesn't matter. It comes back to that platinum rule. Treat them the way they want to be treated. And the same thing, obviously, if you're dealing with different parts of a country, or you're dealing with, like wine, you're dealing with different industries and such, or like we were talking about earlier, you're dealing with a CEO or an executive versus you're dealing with maybe a mechanic or a chef or a cook. There are language is something that, although, like you said, Jaimie, oh, we all speak the same language. We don't. we all speak different languages.
Yeah.
So understanding, and I don't mean to criticize you, Jaimie, but
No,
I just want to highlight is that understanding, it's a really good metaphor, if you will, to think about it, is understand the language and at all levels of the audience that you're speaking with. And I think there's a really good lesson in that.
I also want to know why Canadians say like again, like there's that whole, I'm just curious. Like,
well, you just said it.
Canadian. She lives here and she speaks mostly like I do. And then I'll hear like, and you, Mark, all the time I speak to you, and it's
Sure.
Emphasis on the different letters and the different way you pronounce things. It's interesting to me, but
I think it again comes back to the way we're taught. I think it's English, the British English pronunciation and such. But I laugh at the again one because I get that all the time from Americans.
How do Americans pronounce that?
Again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and some of them, and it's very unique how it works around the country. Not only in Canada, in the United States, but in Canada too. We have a lot of different accents in Canada too. A lot of people think, oh, Canadian is Canadian, but we have the Southern drawl, as much, but it's not a Southern drawl. It's try and listen to somebody, speak to somebody from PEI, Prince Edward Island sometime, or any part of the country. It really changes it. Even from Toronto to Vancouver, you'll notice a difference. But I also get in the States a lot, again.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Again. So that's more of a Southern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then as you go into Canada, of course, it's gain, like we really gain. So I say, how do you say GAIN?
We say gain. Yeah,
gain.
and I mean that's the way it should be. I guess the way
an A in front of it.
Is the way it should be said. Is how you guys actually have it right. Again should be like AGAN again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, if you're gonna.
And it's just like I said. Yeah. It's sloppiness too, right? Like we all get sloppy with our pronunciation and the way our mouths work. I think that's.
I didn't mean to take it back there. I just was thinking that while you were talking. So.
But again, it comes back to the
learn.
audience. If you can throw in little things like that in the way you're talking, then you're building rapport.
Yeah. Because
you're respecting the way somebody writes something or says something. Although as Canadians, we'd have a really hard time saying again.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, funny. But I wanted to do one other thing too, is I wanted to, by the way, this is recorded, so this will be published.
Oh God.
And
I may edit out the part. Just saying.
Jaimie might do some editing, but I wanted to pause because really in the beginning, it would have been polite to introduce ourselves. So I wanted to take a moment to do that. And I don't know if you want to edit this and put it at the front or not, Jaimie, but just wanted to introduce ourselves and let everyone know this and some of the origins of this. So my name is Mark Kanty. My company is called Release Dynamics. And I work specifically with coaching and helping people develop clarity about what they want to do and where they want to go with their business, what kind of audience they want to appeal to, how they might get pulled off of track from that, and how there are lots of shiny objects out there, as we all know, that can very easily pull us on track. So bringing us back and continually clarifying and re-clarifying. So I'm a set of glasses, if you will, or that's what I try and be. And we have Jaimie Skultety here. And go ahead and introduce yourself, Jaimie.
Thanks. So I'm Jaimie Skultety, and I am the CEO of Upscale Your Business. And I kind of take Mark's approach and help you apply that to your business and your marketing of your business. So once you've got that clarity, we help you to be more visible, more consistent with your messaging. And we also help you with getting leads for your business, so attracting new people. So ideal clients, not just anybody with a pulse, but actually getting you in front of the people who would be most suited to work with you. So that's a quick synopsis in a nutshell of what we do. And just to give a little plug for our websites, and this is not by any means a sales thing, it's more of a, for those of you who don't know who we are and you see our recordings, you might want to know us a little bit. So Mark's website is releasedynamics.net, correct, Mark?
Yes, I have two, but we're transitioning to the .net right now. Yes.
And mine is upscaleyourbusiness.com. So you can learn more about us if you want to, but that's a quick synopsis of what we do.
And one of our guests that we have live on the call with us today is Ashley 𝐂𝐎𝐀 of 𝐂𝐎𝐀 Communications out of Vancouver, British Columbia. And Ashley is our specialist, and I'll let you maybe give a little 30-second commercial for yourself, Ashley, but I'll also introduce you to as our wine expert. And I don't mean she's not going to teach us how to drink wine, although if we were a little later, well, we could do it. We're afternoon, so we could have wine. But Ashley works specifically with wineries, winemakers, winery owners, and helps them develop teams, so it helps them build rapport with their staff so that they can maximize their most valuable asset, which is working together as a team. And also, she does a fabulous job of helping them get the most out of their wine tasting rooms and their wine clubs. So this idea of communications and being able to build rapport with their clients so that people who come and buy wine from a winery don't just walk out with a bottle, but walk out with a case and sign up for a subscription and become raving fans of that winery. So that's her forte. And Ashley, I don't know if you need to add any more to that, but that's my little commercial for you.
Ashley, for your 30 seconds.
Yeah, you nailed it, Mark. Yeah, thank you very much, Mark and Jaimie, for organizing these calls, which are fantastic. And yes, you captured what I do, and it's part of my background. One of my great passions is absolutely wine and the impact that wine has on our lives and on our experiences, the fun times shared. And so when wineries and tasting rooms are selling wine, that is something that I encourage them to train their teams to do, to really interact with the guests, to understand what brought them there to the winery and how they're going to use this wine. How will it integrate into their lives? And by creating that connection, you can really establish that rapport that will build the trust in that relationship, even if it's a very brief relationship right off the bat, but absolutely can be very powerful in building that customer relationship and selling more wine, of course.
Awesome. And your slogan is?
Go beyond the wine.
Yes.
Go beyond the wine, to the relationship, to the wine, what it's going to represent in your life. Yes, there's so much more beyond the wine.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I have an idea just popped into my head here, Ashley, and if you get a chance, go and maybe on YouTube or whatever, but do you know Gary Vaynerchuk? Okay.
Yep.
So go see if you can find some old videos of Gary from back in the day. And I'm sure you'll find them. They'll be out there. And I'm not suggesting you do that because he was selling wine from his wine store and he was doing tastings and everything. But I was thinking, I just had this image pop into my mind that you could do right now is invite some winery owners to, maybe a weekly meeting like this on Zoom to say, hey, you know what? We're all self-isolating, but you've got some great wines coming up. I know that, you're bottling, you're marketing, you're still doing all those things. Why don't we get together and just talk about what we're excited about and share some wine, and we'll all have a virtual wine fest here. We'll have a virtual tasting.
Bring your keys.
And bring your glass, bring your open bottle of wine. Be ready to talk about what you love about it the most, and let's have some fun together. And let's talk about how we're dealing with this situation and how we're going to adapt. So that could be a suggestion for you, Ashley. I'd love to see that. I'd love to show up with a glass of wine and see what happens.
Ashley, can you provide your website to people so they can learn more about you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Jaimie. It's 𝐂𝐎𝐀Communications.com, and 𝐂𝐎𝐀 is KOMARYK, and that's communications, all attached, .com.
And if you want to hook up with her on LinkedIn, her first name is spelled ASHLI.
You got it.
So don't look up Ashley with an EY. No.
It's a little bit different, Yeah, thank you very much. And that's a great idea, Mark. I actually participated in a friend of mine who's a wine journalist, a wine writer, is organizing happy hours. And I thought, you hear about these apps and House Party and Zoom happy hours, meetings, get-togethers, and people gathering that way in, physical distancing, but socially connected. And so she did this, and she has wine industry peers, and I thought, well, let me just go see what it's like to be sipping your wine with, you know, with other wine people. And it was great. It was really great. You know, it's just a conversation that you would normally have being at the same table, or, you know, sitting on in a lounge together at a bar. And it was great. So yeah, I absolutely think it'd be a great idea to invite people from the wineries to come to a gathering like that of journalists, and to record those and put them on YouTube would be a good little archive.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what the piece that you could fulfill for a lot of winery owners and people that are in the business side of wine is, yeah, you're drinking some wine. It's an opportunity for, you know, I know if I was a winery owner and I was really excited about a particular wine that I'd created this year, a particular label, and this hit, I'd be just chomping at the bit to talk to somebody about it, to at least, you know, show off my baby, you know, and talk a little bit about some of the stresses and challenges, and how, you know, how to pivot, to brainstorm out some ideas as to how to pivot as a business owner, a winery owner in today's environment, what people are doing differently, how many people are out there. I know in food service, for example, Earl's Restaurant, which is a chain of restaurants, if you will. I believe they're based out of Calgary, I think they're Alberta somewhere, and they have a number of restaurants around Canada. But here in town, I've just been so impressed with how they have pivoted and adapted. So they, for example, immediately said, okay, restaurants are closed. We've got takeout. We'll make you your great, and they're a nice restaurant. I mean, they do really good quality food, so they're not fast food. So they said, we'll make you your favorite Earl's meal. Just order it, pay online, come and pick it up. We'll have it ready for you. Then the government loosened some rules here in Canada where they could also include beer and wine, so alcoholic beverage. So again, they were all over that. Hey, not only can you now have your meal, but we'll put in the beer, we'll put in the wine there for you, whatever you want, bottle of wine, a couple bottles of beer or cans of beer or whatever. And now they've even pivoted even more, where they're putting together kind of grocery kits. So your favorite meal that you want to make from Earl's will give you, you know, the raw ingredients, if you will. So they're selling raw ingredients now, so you can actually go and get a grocery bag from Earl's. So they're just really, you know, on the ball here.
The only thing is, I said we have that too. There's a restaurant here locally that's doing that kind of thing, except that they've added in 2 rolls of toilet paper with it.
Yeah, great idea.
True.
But I love that idea.
And I've been helping them to market it, because I think it's a brilliant marketing strategy.
Yes.
I put it up on Facebook. I said, you know, not only is this brilliant marketing, but a very tempting offer.
Yeah.
So, and I've been sharing it. I sent it to my dad, and then he sent it to his friends who live near the restaurant. So it's absolutely brilliant.
And that little twist is, you know, is humorous, but it also gets somebody like you who's not in the business at all, they're not your clients, to share it. So it's something where you can turn something, make it viral. So very clever. And it, you know, we're only limited by our own capacity to be creative.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up here in just around 10 minutes. So I wanted to just share a couple other thoughts. One is, once again, this is kind of part of the introduction, but we're all over the map here, is this call has been going on for a long time. It used to be a monthly call where Jaimie and I would get together with clients and members of our program, and anybody could jump on at any time with a specific problem or issue that they were trying to implement. So what they would do is, sorry, I'm seeing a note here. No, I'm not going to do that today. Ashley's asking about the Johari window, but I will do that. I will do that, but not today. So, anyhow, the concept was, we thought, well, wait a minute, let's open this up to anybody, any coach or consultant that is struggling, feeling isolated, or just wondering, how do I pivot? Where can I get ideas, so that we can share and just have this collaborative, open mic sort of idea, which we did today. There were lots of great things that came out of today. And one of the things I want to close with here, I was going to open this with this, but I'm going to close with it, was something I picked up that Jaimie had posted a little while ago, about a week or so ago. And it was kind of a synopsis, if you will, a summary of a podcast that was done by Amy Porterfield. And probably a number of you would know who Amy Porterfield is. She's awesome.
I love her.
Just has fantastic ideas. But Jaimie was lovely enough to share the podcast on her Facebook page, which is Upscale Your Business, if you want to look for that on Facebook. And she kind of outlined 5 takeaways from that. And Amy was talking about, what do you do right now? What's going on with the world, and how do you navigate through a crisis? And she said, really this could apply to any crisis, I believe, but obviously we're in a health crisis right now. So I'll just briefly run through a couple of these, or all of these, with you, and I'm going to hit on the one that really resonates, or they all resonate with me, but one in particular I want to highlight. So one was get into action. Feel the feelings, but take action. Don't get stuck, right? Keep your mindset focused on abundance and growth and doing what you need to do. You're an entrepreneur. It means you're resilient. It means you need to take the lead. Second, commit to a routine. Commit to a morning routine and an end of day. So business as usual. Get up at the same time. Do your routine. Do your exercise. That's what I've always done. I continue to do that. I can't do it in a gym anymore, so I'm doing it in my living room. I've had to make some changes. I've adapted a bit, but that routine is there. So start and finish at the same time. Don't get distracted by news. Don't go wandering out into the living room or the family room and turning on CNN or whatever news you're watching, or CBC. Stay focused. Number 3, clarify your crisis messaging. I think this is really important. Get clear on what you're going to say to your audience at this time and how you're going to position yourself in your business. It's Jaimie and I talked about this the other day, and I talked about this with a client the other day too, is you definitely need to be talking about the elephant in the room. If you're trying to gloss over and pretend it's business as usual, my messaging is exactly what it's always been, everything is the same, I think you're really breaking rapport, as we've talked about. You're missing out on the opportunity to be authentic and to just talk about what's going on right now. So I think that's really important, that we address the elephant in the room every time we can. Number 4, show up and offer something valuable. And right now, we've talked about this over the last few weeks. Give some stuff away, offer something that's free that will resonate and support people through this time. We're all dealing with different issues in our business, so don't be afraid to give it away. Number 5, this one I want to hit home on too. You might be wondering, and she puts this in quotes, Amy, I don't feel I should be selling right now. How many people are thinking that? And her response is, my answer to you is, if you stop selling, then our economy will be crushed. And she's right. Everything will come to a standstill. You are not being opportunistic if you're selling in our current climate. As long as you offer a solution to help serve your audience, that's the key. Is, if you're selling some get-rich-quick scheme, or you don't have enough confidence that your product will make somebody, or service will make somebody's life better, then maybe you don't need to be selling. But that's not the reality. The reality is we're needed now as coaches, consultants, more than ever. So take time to reevaluate your offers and make sure they align with what people need right now in this time of uncertainty. And be willing to pivot if you need to. That's really, really important at this moment in time. We were talking earlier, Jaimie and I, about, those are the 5 points, by the way. We were talking about this as an example, would be, I was on a call earlier and a fellow was saying, gee, my alumni got together on a Zoom call because we couldn't meet in person and they wanted to have a connection. And about 35 people from his graduating class or whatever got on this call. And he said, of those 35, about 15 had never seen or heard of Zoom before. And they loved it. And everybody had a great time. He said, like we were talking about earlier, they all had a cocktail or a glass of wine, and they were all just chit-chatting, and getting to know each other again, and just having this feeling, this sense of community. He said it was wonderful. But he said one of the things he noticed was interesting is he said those 15 that had never seen Zoom before all thanked everybody for introducing them, and said as soon as they got off the call, they were going to go and get in touch with Zoom and sign up and get it. Now, can you imagine if Zoom had a landing page that said, sorry, we're taking it easy right now. We're not doing anything. We're shutting down all our marketing. We're not selling any new services right now because we don't want to disturb anybody. We wouldn't want to help people get together in communities. We wouldn't want to help people have video conferencing with their families right now because that would be being pushy. Can you imagine if Zoom did that? Not only would they be denying themselves an opportunity to serve, but they'd actually be turning people off and offending them. They'd be denying people the opportunity to connect. So I want you to think about that in terms of what is it in what you're offering that is of a Zoom-like offer? What is it that you do that can help people in this moment, that will help people not only in this moment, but in the future and in time to come? And you have it, you know you have it. And if you need help, you know, identifying that or getting clarity on it or getting more focused on your messaging, call us, you know, give us a shout. Let Jaimie and I know. Either one of us would be happy to help you with that. So with that, I'm going to kind of close up and leave any comments to Jaimie and leave a little teaser here. Ashley, you brought it up, so I'm going to piggyback on this, the Johari window. If you haven't heard of it, then watch for it, because next week we'll do it. We'll do it next week. We'll do the Johari window.
So my final comments before we wrap up are that, yes, exactly what Mark was saying. I was really inspired by that last little bit about, you know, what do you have in your arsenal that you have already created that, you know, has just sat dormant on your computer? What can you pull together that could be of a helpful resource? I know what we did right away is we put together a toolkit or a toolbox, if you will, of some of the things, and we've got more to pull. But, you know, this is your time, you know, as I say, embrace your virtual space, but, you know, go create something that would be really relevant right now and get that up on somewhere, website, you know, email, whatever, and offer that as a helpful resource and put together some kind of, you know, rescue kit, if you will. So I like that idea.
And I'd like to invite Ashley to leave any closing comments or feedback. Your mic's off.
Oh, you're muted. Carol, I unmuted you.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that was a really important point to address about the uneasiness maybe of selling and being silly, perceived as being pushy. It's true that people still need things. And one consultant's webinar that I attended had just this nugget of gold that I'm so happy to share with your audience today, is that, you know, if you think about someone who's gone through a tragedy or lost a loved one recently or is dealing with something a terrible challenge, we often don't know what to say to them. And so we'll say, if you need anything, call me. Just let me know anything at all you need. And we mean that earnestly. We really want to help. But a person who's in that like panic, in that crisis, probably doesn't have a nicely ordered, numbered, in prioritized order list of things that they need done. So they're not able to say, oh, well, thank you very much for that kind offer. Yes, I'd like you to take number 3, number 4, and 5, and 7 if you have time. That would be fantastic. No. So as consultants, we know our gold. We know what we can offer. Yeah. So especially with existing clients where you already have that rapport of trust that we were talking about at the top of this call, it's easier to say, these are some things that you might find useful and that I can help you with. And you make your little list of things that you can, little or big list, probably little be less overwhelming, but here are some things that I can help you out with. You might want to offer them, at lower cost or no cost in this moment as a gesture of support, but these are your existing clients. So, you're not going to appear as pushy, and it is a way to help in a very specific way for them to say, oh gosh, yeah, that actually would be really helpful for us to do a team build tune-up call or a check-in on how we're all feeling and what does conflict look like with a virtual platform now that we're not sitting around the table in the same room. And so I think, these are important. It's important to keep going, keep offering, keep doing.
So I think that's absolutely brilliant insight, Ashley. It's like the, I think I said it last week. It's like you're walking by and somebody's drowning and you go, well, they didn't reach out and go, can you help me? So you let them drown. So it's the same kind of metaphor really, is that, reach out and say, hey, here's a pole, grab onto this. Here's my hand, whatever it is. I think, you just nailed it. It's so important. And I think as coaches and consultants, it's really important. It's a great time to go through this exercise to get really clear on what can I offer. And maybe, like you said, do a brainstorm and then try and think situationally, what's the best thing I can do right now? Well, right now, for example, might not be, oh, I can help you lay out a strategic plan for the next 5 years. You know, people are dealing day by day. So you're going to go, well, that is something I can offer, but obviously it's not appropriate right now, or it's not what people need right now. But if you can offer something that says, this is what you can do today, this is what you can do now, this is what you can do tomorrow, you know, that's maybe deals with the sense of urgency that we're with right now. So I think that's absolutely a brilliant observation and a great idea, is to do that brainstorm and think, yeah, and don't just say, how can I help, or what do you need, what can I help you with, but instead be that person who reaches out with the pole or the stick or whatever and say, hey, this is something I think would really help you in this moment in time. Would you like it? Can I send this to you? Can I give this to you? Whatever it happens to be, I think that's absolutely brilliant. So
thank you for
let's
sharing.
leave it at that. We're at the top of the hour.
Yep, thank you.
We'll leave it on that high note.
Yep.
All right. Thanks very much to you both.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Jaimie.
Yep.
Okay, next week, same bat channel, same bat time.
Yep. All right, let me stop the